Da, 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 da. Yeah, it's such a fucking jam. I think I've used it in this podcast like 4 times. Or like, bwomp, 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 bwomp.
Yeah, Plinko, hell yeah. So, do you want to talk about this episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of It's Always Stockholm in Los Angeles. My name is Nate Harold.
And I am Will Noon, coming to you live from the swamp.
Today we are talking about Season 4, Episode 11 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Gang Cracks the Liberty Bell.
Boy, do they ever.
Directed by Matt Shackman, written by Rob McElhenney, Glenn Howerton, and David Hornsby.
So we've got a period piece on our hands.
We do. Just an observation right off the top. Is this the most production set design they've done for an episode of this show?
It has to be, right?
It was pretty impressive, I gotta say.
Yeah,
Even though it's like
this
nothing, it's and like it in the scope of television in general, it's nothing. But for this show, it's impressive.
Yeah, it feels like they just in one episode doubled their entire series budget.
Yeah, because the like exterior stuff, we've never seen that before. We'll never see that again.
I mean, it does look quite a bit like Patty's, but
the interior, I was going to ask, is that Patty's?
It seems like it would be harder to recreate it, or maybe not. Maybe it would be. Oh, that's a great question. I have to go back and watch it.
I thought about that the first time I watched it, like yesterday, and I still couldn't tell. I don't know anything about television production, so I don't know how easy it is to go. Like, maybe did they film this episode last in the season
and just go to town converting it?
Yeah, but they use the same Patty set every year, or I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that in my brain, it seems like it would be just easier to like build or find something similar, rather than to like take your set apart and like make it old timey. But now that I'm saying that, I'm like, if you look closely, it's probably not that different. I mean, it's like a wood bar, it's not like glass and metal.
Right. But it's like the Patriots are sitting at where the pool table is, if I'm not mistaken.
The door's in the right spot, the bar's in the right spot.
But I guess the question is, how hard is it to make a room with like roughly the same setup? Like, probably not that hard.
Exactly. How difficult or easy is it to either put a 1770s veneer on something versus create a crappy room on a set?
Oh, I thought it was 1412.
I understand why you would think that.
Okay.
So, do you want to go through a quick little synopsis of this episode?
Please tell me what happens in this episode.
Let everybody know what happened. Yeah, okay, so they start out in the Historical Society, and they're trying to tell this woman the story of how Patty's was involved in the cracking of the Liberty Bell, therefore getting them designated as an historical landmark so that walking tours in Philadelphia would come through their bar. So with that, we flash back to 1776 as opposed to 1412, and we see old-timey Mac and Dennis trying to get on the British good side because they hear about the revolution coming, and they are sure that the British are going to win. So they go and try to get on their good side by giving them ale, offering them a declaration of dependence, and a drawing which is misconstrued as them sodomizing the King of England. Meanwhile, Charlie and Frank are trying to trade skunk pelts or various animal pelts for a pumpkin. They then go on to steal some guns, which Dee later curses because they assume she's a witch. So Mac and Dennis, after unsuccessfully trying to get on the British good side, they try to infiltrate the revolution and get some intel to then give to the British, but that doesn't go well. Dennis, for some reason, usually it's the opposite. Usually Mac is the one screwing up like this, but Dennis is the one that screws up with them trying to infiltrate the Sons of Liberty. So Cricket comes to the bar and proposes to Dee, which makes her maybe almost gag. But then she hears about fancy stuff and she's excited. So then Frank makes Cricket buy their guns as payment because Dee is technically their slave. They then go full fop and become British aristocracy. And when the Patriots see that on the streets, they tar and feather them. So the revolution is upon us, and Cricket retreats to the bar when all of their guns jammed because of the previously mentioned curse that Dee put upon them. And then somehow it unjams when Frank is messing with it, and his head explodes. And then to get rid of the body, because they don't want the British to find one of their colonels dead in their bar, he invents the Headless Horseman, and we see Cricket's body with a jack-o'-lantern on his head riding through the streets of Philadelphia, which scares the men carrying the Liberty Bell, and it cracks. And for some reason, Dee flies away as a witch on a broom.
Let's talk about the opening scene of this episode, Will. This is what I would call a classic Sonny opening.
Well, okay, so this is what I would call a fake-out of the classic Sonny opening.
But they go back and forth so often that you might as well just call it the classic Sonny opening. Either the person's there or they're not.
Right, but I think way more often they do the thing where the person is there and they're talking about them. And this one, I feel like we're far enough into the series where the setup is implying that the person's there. You're gonna see it pull back, but they don't. Like, they don't pull back. The person isn't there. Might
I just add my opinion here, where I think it's almost better this way, because the timing of the woman walking in the room right when Mac touches the knife to the painting is pretty awesome.
What are you doing?
No,
I think very well executed. And yes, I do agree with you. I know what you're saying. It's the reverse. But I would still call that a classic.
I mean, yes, if a thing can also be the same as the opposite of a thing, then I would agree.
It's a subversion of the audience's expectations.
A phrase which has more or less lost all of its meaning in recent discussions on film criticism is the term subverting expectations.
The woman is not in the room.
Oh, subversion of expectation. If that is the bit, then I guess I would have to agree.
Right? Because isn't that the whole thing? Like, when they do that in other instances earlier in the series, you would not expect the person to be in there. At this point, we're in season 4.
Right. Now we expect the person to be in there because we previously expected the person to not be there.
Exactly. There's some great lines in this. It's short and sweet. It's a lot about how presidents end up looking like women as they get older. George Washington is a pretty good case. He's wearing a lot of makeup, so it's kind of understandable.
Yeah, old-timey photos have really red cheeks, or paintings.
Yeah, Dennis brings up another good point that Ronald Reagan basically, he wasn't wearing a wig, but he essentially had the same look towards the end of his presidency.
Yeah, I think maybe it is like that real desperate strive to like make yourself look alive, like makeup. And because old people, they lose the color in their skin, their vitality. So they have to like primp themselves somehow.
Make it look like there's blood flowing in their veins in whatever way possible.
Yeah, the same way that you would like dress up a corpse. Which
Frank does hire a mortician to do his makeup later on.
Exactly.
Oh, what on earth did you do to your face? I had it done at a funeral home.
One notable thing about this opening scene that I would like to point out is Mac is wearing a Philadelphia Soul shirt. The Philadelphia Soul are the arena football team that John Bon Jovi
owns.
So are we led to believe that he maybe stole this shirt on his way out?
From the woman's office?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like an office that would have merch.
Well, we don't know what they went through to get to that office. Maybe they went through, maybe there's a gift shop in their office.
I think that if I had to guess, I would say this type of office that she was in, unless they had like a framed glass shirt with like a thing, like a something very formal, and Mac stole that, which is possible.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't say.
But aren't a lot of team offices in the place where the sports team plays? For example, George Costanza works for the Yankees, and that's in Yankee Stadium.
And if you look at that office, it feels like it's in Yankee Stadium.
Exactly. So who's to say that the Philadelphia Soul office isn't in wherever indoor place they play, and on the way out, Mac just grabbed a shirt?
I'm to say, because I think when I see that office that we did see, it does not look like it's inside an indoor soccer stadium.
Why are you being a hater? I think my idea is good.
And I hate your idea.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great bit. The painting is bolted, which means that other people have tried to take it down.
I love that justification.
In similar circumstances.
Unbelievable. It's bolted to the wall.
Well, that proves our point, man. We're not the first people to try and take that thing down.
Yeah, but we're going to be the first ones to actually succeed.
When the woman actually enters, Charlie asks, "Do you want this up?" Like as if she would be like, "Oh, thank God, they're cutting it out of the frame."
Yeah. She's like, I've been trying to pull that thing off the wall forever. It's just bolted right on.
The Historical Society employee in this scene is played by Pat Crawford Brown.
Yeah. Do we know anything about her?
Yes. She has a ton of credits. She's been in a zillion things, but notably, she was Pierce's mom's voice on Community on the episode called "The Psychology of Letting Go." She was when he pops in the CD as they're driving to the ice cream place, which is actually the morgue or wherever.
Yeah, exactly.
She's the one that's talking to Pierce about, she's actually dead. She's not vaporized. Yada yada yada.
Right.
Pierce, you found the CD, which means I'm dead.
Vaporized.
I'm not vaporized. I'm gone, Pierce.
And then she plays herself out with that amazing song. That's her.
That's crazy. She does look very familiar.
She was in an episode of Arrested Development, but I didn't really dive in there to see which episode it was. It said as old lady, which was about 80% of the credits that I saw on there.
Right. Do you happen to remember if she started her career in the 1920s, or did she land the old lady role 30 years ago when she's just been rocking it?
Well, okay. Well, I don't have it open, unfortunately, but I could. Oh, here we go. Yeah, because I noticed that the as old lady thing came up surprisingly early, and I want to say, hang on, let me just as old woman number 1, 1987, Beauty and the Beast, the TV show. So.
But does she have a lot of credit? Was she a famous young actress or a successful or busy young actress? Or
it's hard to say. The selected filmography starts in 86, but it does say here that she began acting in her 50s. So there you go. Yeah.
I always think that's interesting and cool when you know someone as the old person in the show or movie or whatever. And it's man, were they was she 50 years old? And she was like, I think acting would be fun. Yeah,
she was an English teacher, high school English teacher before.
I mean, maybe it's something she always wanted to do, but she had kids and a job and blah, blah, blah. And then at 50, everyone's out of the house. She's just semi-retired.
Yeah,
screw it.
She had the old lady market just on lock starting in 1987. And she passed away in 2019. Pretty significant amount of time. Let's talk about the alliances in this episode. To start out with, well, they're pretty basic in this episode. It's Frank and Charlie, Dennis and Mac, and then Dee is flitting about.
She's being pissed on everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being called a witch.
She's not really aligned with anyone. She's just in the A plot and the B plot.
Yeah, exactly. She's sort of being her voice of reason.
Yeah. In the Dennis and Mac alliance, it's, again, a pretty common thing where it's or at least it starts out like this, where it's the socioeconomic differences between Dennis and Mac are on full display, as they often are, where, for example, when Mac and Dennis go to meet the British officers for the first time, Dennis is like, no, you gotta dress like an aristocrat, like a fancy guy.
British commoners dress like you're dressed. British peons, okay? I'm dressed like a nobleman, okay? These people respond to royalty.
Dennis is also reading, what is he reading?
It's a Ben Franklin thing.
The Road to Wealth or something?
The Way to Wealth or something like that.
But yeah, it kind of does show off, that sort of thing, which is interesting because Dee and Dennis, who usually are on the higher end of that class struggle,
yeah,
because of the way they grew up, Dee is a firm believer in the revolution
She is.
until later on in the episode.
Until she's offered garments and jewels by a fancy British man.
Yep.
Frank and Charlie are exactly the same in 1776 as they are in 2000 whatever. They are scamming and scheming and living on the fringe.
Yep. Also, do you know anything about pumpkins?
No.
I know that they seem to be prevalent in the fall.
Yeah.
So why does that guy have a cart full of delicious, plump, juicy
Delicious.
pumpkins in mid-July?
Maybe they grow in the summer. I don't know. When's pumpkin harvest?
In the fall.
Okay, well, then I don't know what to tell you.
It just seems a little suspicious. Do you think that somehow, like, on set there was a a cart of pumpkins as opposed to something else, and they were like, all right, fine, we'll use it? Or do you think it was written?
Or that, I guess that seems like an old timey, like back then people used to eat pumpkins.
Right.
I don't know. But while we're speaking of things that are not in season, I was curious about Dee is a slave. She's owned by, I guess, all of the guys. Not really made super clear. But they said that they saved her from being burned at the stake for being a witch.
Right.
So I was curious. I thought the Salem witch trials and all that stuff was way earlier than that.
Yeah, I would have thought.
It is
That
way
was-
earlier than that.
I would have thought that was like 100 years prior.
Yeah, you're pretty close. Prosecutions for the crime of witchcraft reached a high point from 1580 to 1630. And it seems like the last bit of that kind of happened in Europe and in the 18th century, but more like 1730.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, the colonies were well over it. So
Right.
was Dee an outlier? We'll never know.
She was the last of the witchcrafters.
But also, she really was a witch. I mean, in the context of the retelling of this tale. So,
Right.
Who
Yeah,
am I to say?
her being a witch is canon.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I skipped it, but I think the Declaration of Dependence is hilarious.
It's a great bit.
Yes, we need to make a declaration of dependence.
And also funny how Mac and Dennis jump immediately to like, well, obviously the British are going to win.
Okay, clearly the British are going to win this thing.
Clearly.
Yeah, I thought about that. And I feel like that had to be a sort of common sentiment among people living in America at that time, right? They're in charge of you. Their military's here. I guess this is the
Yeah.
point when they started tarring and feathering tax collectors, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it's like any revolution. Yeah, I guess you assume that the commonplace, the status quo thing will continue.
Right. I'm not saying
doesn't.
that it was the majority of the sentiment. I'm just saying there had to be a lot of people like that.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I don't
a
think
lot
it's
of
that-
traitors.
Yeah, I don't think it's that weird. That
Yeah.
it's funny how like spineless they are.
Yeah, I also think that Dee is cool in this because she's sort of playing the voice of reason, like her character usually is,
Right.
in a sense. But in this episode, it's almost like everyone else is doing character voices. You know,
Mhm.
they're being period correct, but
Right.
Dee never seems to do that.
I was going to point out something about that. To me, it seems like the very top of the reenactment of like once they start telling the story. Dee and Dennis start out by doing these like theater voices and pronunciations, and just the way that they're talking at the beginning just seems like it would be in a theater setting.
Will you look at that? Sons of Liberty. Patriots meeting in our bar speaking of revolution and freedom. Can you believe it, dear brother? We're witnessing history in the making.
I do not give a shit, Deandra.
And then they so quickly shift when Dennis brings up her being the slave and asks for ale, and she fights back.
Get me a flagon of ale.
Get your own ale, Dick.
But they really snap out of it when Mac shows up, because Mac is exactly the same in 1776 as he is in the current day.
Guys, I've got some news. I've got some terrible news.
I don't know. I think he's got a little bit of a thing going on, doesn't he?
Is it the wooden teeth?
Yeah, like not just the wooden teeth, but I think that obviously he's not a Juilliard trained actor.
Mhm.
But he tries something. I think at points he tries something.
Yeah, I guess when he starts out by saying, you know, that chick that I've been banging down at City Hall, that to me is like, oh, this is just Mac.
Yeah. No. He's definitely not. I mean, I think Dennis and Charlie seem like they're the most committed.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And Cricket. Cricket does a great British accent.
It's funny that his name is Colonel Cricket. Like, he's not, because it's like MacDonald, Charles, Franklin,
Right.
and then Colonel Cricket.
Well, which does make sense because it's their retelling.
Right, sure.
Because that's who he would be.
Yeah.
According to them. Another interesting thing that I was just reading about is the MacDonald, because they, I think they wanted to make it formal.
Right.
But isn't his name Ronald McDonald?
Ronald MacDonald, right? I don't know.
I think it's, well, I was reading that it was Mick, according to the later reveal. We find out about it at the reunion? But I think I've had that problem with why does everyone call him Mac?
Yeah, you're right. It is McDonald, but
I think that basically, I think that the reality of it is that his name is McDonald and always was and will be, but it sounds less formal.
Right. So when they say it
Call
with
him
like
McDonald.
that, yeah, when they say it with that like pseudo British accent,
Theater voice, yeah.
it sounds better. Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any highlights you want to talk about?
Well, I kind of already mentioned some, but I think we can continue.
Yeah, we've already kind of touched on a lot of them, but I could start with my favorite scene in this episode. Well,
okay.
I guess I should preface it with saying my MVP for this episode is Charlie.
Okay.
Performance, character, it's hitting all the marks for me. My favorite scene is when they are testing out the guns that Frank stole.
Oh, so good.
Because it's a lot of questions that I would bring up. Like, so they want to test these guns to see if they work. So they're gonna use a pumpkin and they're gonna put it on top of Frank's head. I guess
Right.
to test the accuracy.
Hiya.
Ready?
Yes.
All right.
Shoot.
1, 2,
Whoa!
3.
Whoa! Do not shoot that pumpkin!
I mean, people were definitely stupid back then, which is like that's kind of like a given. So like, yeah, that probably is how the way they tested guns here and there was people shooting stuff off of other people's heads.
I don't know if that was true.
It's just let's just say it is.
Okay.
It's just interesting because the pumpkin is, I guess, Charlie's sole possession.
Yeah, he traded all of his pelts.
Well, he all of his pelts were stolen.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that. Let's just talk about that for 1 second.
Oh, that's a great scene also.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And yeah, Charlie's accenting and his character is weird. It's not just like old timey, it's like demonic a little bit. It's
Yeah, and they gave him those like those really dirty teeth,
yeah. He looks
stage
he
dirty
looks
teeth.
great. So he wants to trade all of his pelts for all of the pumpkins, and the guy says no.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, how about all of my pelts for one pumpkin? And I don't know if the guy says no or yes.
One pumpkin. Deal. All right. Wait. Whoa, Charlie.
But then Frank says, well, let's just beat him up.
It's brought up a couple times in this episode where they say it's 1776. We're going to get away with killing this guy.
You want his pumpkins? We kill him and take his pumpkins. This is 1776. We'll get away with it.
Right. We'll just like kill him or beat him, bash him, and take them. So he takes the pumpkin over. They go to get a stick. They come back. He left and he stole all their pelts. But he ends up with the pumpkin, and he was going to trade all the pelts for one pumpkin. So the guy didn't steal them. He just agreed to the deal.
And got away before they could kill him.
Right, which was the next offer, which
Right.
I don't know if that's really a negotiation that he would,
Right. So yeah, so in a sense, Charlie did get the deal that he negotiated.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel.
Right. But that's another like variation on the classic Sonny thing where it's like what they do with that city council guy, where they're like talking about this person and like, I guess not a negative way. They're just talking about a person and you expect when the camera goes back that they're still going to be there, but they're gone.
Right. They distract themselves often and give the other person the opportunity to leave.
Right.
So Yes, I would agree. All of Charlie's pelts were traded or stolen, I guess, for one pumpkin. And Frank is going to use this for target practice when it seems like a tree would be fine for target practice.
Or anything.
I'm just thinking a tree would be it wouldn't be a big deal if you harmed a tree.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great, just a great image. It's Dee pointing a gun basically at Frank's head. Charlie says, "No, no, no, no. What are you doing?" Dee is being put on mini trial here by Frank because Charlie and Frank start spinning out and saying like, "Oh, well, she tricked you with her sorcery ways
Maybe she used her sorcery.
Sorcery?
to make you think that this was a good idea." And so then, like, you know, the wheels start spinning, and Frank's like, "Yes, her necromancer ways convinced me to do this. You sorceress!" Yeah,
His line, which I wrote down because it was so good, it was "Damn your necromancy,"
there you go.
which, because of a lot of time that I spend thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, necromancy doesn't really have anything to do with
No, it doesn't.
convincing someone to do something.
No. But it just
More
sounds
about
cool.
reanimating the dead.
Yeah, it sounds cool in this
Yeah.
this scheme of things. But my favorite part of this is when Charlie points the gun at Dee, pulls the trigger, and her reaction.
Charlie! God damn it!
Give me that gun. She cursed the gun.
Right before that, she says, "I've put a curse on you and all your guns."
Right. Which, I mean, debatable. Did she actually do it?
I mean, we'll never know.
Right. But yeah, so when Charlie pulls the trigger, Dee snaps out of being in 1776 and says, "God damn it, Charlie."
Yeah. I think she breaks character a lot. Her whole character is basically broken this whole time.
Yeah.
She's great. The end of the scene is great when she like leaves because they're absurd and they just start pointing the guns at each other and testing them that way.
There's a specific pose that Charlie does.
Nothing. Try me.
It's like they're posing for photos. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the click of a trigger or the hammer hitting does sound like a shutter.
It does. That's a good point. Going back to the again, this is a Charlie highlight for me. When they're talking to the pumpkin guy about the pelts and the trade, and when they start talking about beating the man to death, the way that Charlie words it is like unusually well spoken, especially for like this guy who apparently you can't understand. Because the pumpkin guy is like, I don't have a clue what you're saying. I can't understand you. He says,
I will beat the man about the face and the neck and maybe the chest area and possibly the groin until he's no longer consisting of life pulse, and then you can collect up the man's cart.
I think this is great because it combines an old-timey thing, like we were saying, like it adds the theatrical speech and the old-timey speech where it was like overly formal.
right.
With a little bit of his like illiteracy and idiocracy. So like he's speaking like fancifully. It's kind of like when he gets into lawyer mode.
Yeah.
He uses like bigger words, but he doesn't know how and when to use them, so it kind of still sounds absurd.
Yeah, and he ends up just saying something stupid. Like in this case, he's saying all this stuff, just saying like, "I'm going to beat this guy to death."
But he says it in a way that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Life pulse is a pretty sweet phrase.
There's a classic Dennis. Well, there's a lot of classic Dennis in this episode, but when they go to Colonel Cricket, of course, Dennis prepared a hand-drawn picture.
Yes.
If you think about it for a second, it wouldn't make any sense why they would draw this, but it's a funny picture. Like, you only get to see it for like a split second, but you can see that I believe Dennis has like six-pack abs.
Right.
And it looks like they're doing something horrible to the king, but apparently it's just a bad guy.
This appears to be a rendering of the two of you sodomizing the king whilst the queen is forced to witness.
Oh, no! Goodness gracious, no!
It's pretty amazing how Mac is holding his arms back.
Right.
And the way the drawing is set up, it's like very specific that it could go either way.
Yeah.
You know, if you accept Mac's explanation, yes, Mac is holding his hands back. He's subduing the criminal. And then Dennis in the picture is about to punch him because he's got his hand like raised up or something.
Right.
But from Cricket's perspective, it really does look like they are double teaming the king and the queen is watching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they were just demonstrating. They're just showing their allegiance.
They're trying to declare their dependence.
Just the concept of a declaration of dependence was very good for me.
I love the term Naeth when they're saying like Cricket's accusing them of harboring patriots at their bar, and they're saying no.
Oh, whoops. No. Nath.
Nath, bad intel there.
Yeah, bad intel. Bit of a miscommunication.
And of course, this scene also has Dee spitting in his face,
Whoa, hey, what the hell are you doing?
which is a running theme.
Yeah, I think if we had to go back and pick a theme, it might be spitting in Cricket's face and mouth.
Right.
I really liked when Cricket comes to the bar to court Deandra.
Mm-hmm.
She lets him go through his, I don't know what you would call it, but his declaration, let's say, of love.
Well, also
And
her at the beginning of that, her not recognizing him.
Oh yeah, there's a classic bit.
You spit in my face.
Oh, yep, there it is.
But I really liked her turnaround, which I think is also a classic Dee moment.
Yeah.
Where she says, "Oh, you didn't mention the jewels in the sprawling manor
And the garments.
and the garments." Yeah, so I think she also calls him stupid or says he's a dick for not mentioning that sooner.
Right.
And then she just has a very thinly veiled sort of change of heart when she's like,
Your love, it's like, it's filling me up with all kinds of stuff.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Let's do this.
I really enjoyed her hand motions during that part.
"Yeah." Well, how else would you know the way it was filling her up?
That's a good point.
You could have been filling from the top, but this is sort of filling from like the middle and up.
Right. Important things to note in this scene. Frank is wearing a skunk pelt for hair.
Right.
Which Charlie says looks pretty good. Of course, Charlie being Charlie, he's inspired by Dee spitting in the face of Cricket. So he spits in his face, I believe, twice? Or is it 3 times?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That one got in my mouth. That's
I think once right after Dee does it, and then again at the end when they sort of all come to an agreement. And
Right.
Sort of like a parting gift.
Yes. The British Army is going to buy Frank's guns, and Frank will in turn give Dee, since Dee is technically his slave.
Yeah.
He didn't really run it by the rest of the people, but
I thought it was going to be more of like the dowry or whatever, like the father-daughter angle, but they do reference paying for the slave.
Right.
We'll suspend some disbelief there.
Moving on from there, Dennis and Mac as fops, I believe is the term, is wonderful. I think I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but there was a promo on FX way back in, what was this, 2008, that I remember seeing on TV, where the clip was them doing the yes thing. Yes.
Right.
And that inspired me to watch the show for the first time.
Oh, wow. Sick. I wish I remembered the first thing that got me to watch.
Yeah. And of course, I was surprised that this was a very, very much so a one-off in this absurdity. But I still liked the show, and obviously I stuck with it. Mac has wooden teeth, which Dennis just really, really, really hates.
You know what, man? Those wooden teeth are killing me, man. That lisp is stupid.
Well, I think the wooden teeth is the whole thing that's shaving this thing.
You sound ridiculous.
No, I don't. I think it sounds pretty good. I'm not losing the teeth. Let's just move past that.
I do think it's weird that he keeps it going. That doesn't seem really believable, because his initial inspiration is because that's what patriots were doing, like George Washington,
including Washington.
Teeth.
Yeah.
So it made sense in that context. But then when they flipped to British, it would make sense that he would take it out. But
are they not permanent?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like he needed them. So do you think he had he knocked out 3 of his teeth to put in wooden ones?
That's what I'm asking.
Well, Dennis is telling him to get rid of them.
That's a good point.
So they must. I mean,
bit of a mystery.
Yeah. But anyway, so it seems absurd to me that he would keep going with it. But also, Dennis's actions are no more believable when they're trying to infiltrate the Patriots, Sons of Liberty, and Dennis is just like, write down your names first and last.
Pours it on a little heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mac, surprisingly, is actually doing a decent job.
So I just want to say we love what you're doing over here. I mean, taxation with representation, right? So what's the buzz? Now, what are we all talking about, huh?
Well, he's dressed for the part, and he sounds the part, I guess. Right. So Dennis and Mac walking down the alley as foppish British men until a character by the name of Thug, played by David Guerrera, who we have seen before and we will see again. David Guerrera played the host at the Oldies Rock Cafe, who does the great thing with like the job applications. Like, I'll just put them in this pile.
Not even looking at her.
And then who comes back later as a character we all love named Duncan.
Duncan?
From The Bridge.
I think I'm thinking of Z-Man. Why can't I picture Duncan?
Duncan, he's maybe got like glasses on, like steampunky glasses. He's playing video games.
Oh, and there are people having sex behind a curtain.
Right. And then he DJs at the hospital when Dee's giving birth.
At the hospital. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking of Z-Man.
Yeah. Z-Man is an amazing character.
Yeah, Z-Man's great. I always, for some reason, when I think the word Duncan, because I feel like they reference Duncan a lot.
Right. Well, if you recall, when they are initially looking for Duncan because of Charlie's birthday / actually Frank's birthday, they knock on the door and Z-Man answers and they think that he is Duncan. And his exact quote, I believe, is,
"I ain't no Duncan. It's just right here about to go level 3 and shit."
Maybe that's why I think of him as Duncan.
It's very possible.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. Either way, Z-Man's great. Duncan, we'll see. We'll see how he comes. We'll see how he fares.
Well, I'm just saying that we should appreciate the actor David Guerrera
in his diversity,
for playing so many roles in this show.
He's like a regular what's-her-face from Community.
But talk about a good accent. I thought his accent was great. He's got like the almost like Cockney thing, I think is what that is.
Well, what have we got here?
Yeah, I think maybe not all, but if anyone else spoke, them as well. I feel like there was a very natural, it wasn't over the top. It wasn't theatrical.
Look what we've got here. Yeah, I think that is Cockney.
Which is funny, and I don't think about it, but yeah, wouldn't most of the people in the colonies have British accents?
I think a lot of them would, but I think at this point, I don't know, how long had they been over in America? Like, there are some people that could have been there for like generations at this point.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, the parents had British accents. It's got to take a while.
Yeah.
To lose an accent, because it's not like they're coming to a country where everyone else doesn't have an accent and they're losing it because they're not watching American movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I would believe that Thug really did have that accent. Like that was his natural speaking voice.
Yeah, but I guess if you think about, like, I don't know, if his family had been in the country for 200 years and he did have the accent, 200 years later, people didn't have the accent in 1976.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wasn't born at the time, but I assume.
Yeah. We'll never know. We'll never know.
It is interesting.
But I mean, there's also, he could have come to America like 2 months ago.
Right. True.
It was a porous environment as far as people coming and going, because people were coming probably quite often.
Yeah, I wonder how immigration was back then.
I think it was get off the boat.
If you can survive the journey.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Scanners? I feel like that's a movie you would like.
Yeah, you know what? I've never seen it, but the head getting blown up is a classic thing that I've seen a zillion times.
I've never seen it either, but I know that that's what it's from.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the most referenced thing.
Dennis and Mac being tarred and feathered in their fop costumes is top notch.
What do you think is top notch about it?
I think they look hilarious. I think their wigs are all fucked up. They have feathers from the neck down. You can see a lot of the tar on their arms. Their arms are like black where there's not feathers. They come running in and they're panicked.
There is a full-fledged revolution happening outside right now. It is a bloodbath.
And moving frantically.
I guess it's believable. I don't know. Tar and feathering doesn't do it for me. I don't have that fetish like you do.
How hard do you think it would be to get tar and feathers off of you? It would be next to impossible.
Yeah, it would suck.
I guess I'm not saying from a believable standpoint. I just think it looks funny.
I guess I just didn't think it looked that funny.
Frank tests the guns that didn't work and it becomes unjammed, as you said, blows Cricket's head up off and up.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous moment.
Yeah.
Quick question. Does this make you believe or not believe that the guns were cursed?
Well, you would think that Dee would not sabotage her own life.
Right. I think that, I think that is a vote for them not being cursed.
On the flip side, she does fly away in a broom right after this. On a broom, not in a broom, on a broom.
Right, exactly. Which sort of, quote unquote, proves that she was actually a witch and possibly had the ability to curse them.
Yeah, that's the question. Can witches cast curses, spells? Mr. D&D, I'm asking you.
I think so. I think a witch would definitely be able to curse something.
Sound off in the comments if you think Will's wrong or right.
And let us know if you're into necromancy. Also, I think that Frank would be able to steal a pile of guns if they were like jammed or had been dropped in a river for a while. If people were like, well, these guns suck. So, they might not have been guarded as quite as securely as other guns.
Maybe he boiled them.
He boiled them himself?
Yeah, he found a pile of guns under the bridge, and like all denims, he boiled it first. But yeah, I don't think that I despite it's hard to tell reality from fiction at this point, but despite Dee flying away on a broom, I do not think that she cursed the guns.
Is it really hard to distinguish fact from reality or fact from fiction?
Yeah.
It's all fiction.
It's within the boundaries of the sitcom.
Right, but their whole story is made up. Even if you're saying
I don't know what you're saying. This doesn't I don't get it.
I think you're saying within the context of Always Sunny, if Always Sunny is a real place and time.
Yeah.
The story that they're telling is definitely all fiction.
But we don't know that for sure.
I would say we do.
Well, while we're on this topic,
okay. How about this? The Liberty Bell wasn't cracked in 1776.
That's where I was going.
So I would say that there's a good chance that none of this happened because she definitely didn't ride away on a broomstick. The chances of the 5 of them having relatives that look exactly like them and that are all still related.
When was the first sighting of the Headless Horseman?
Ooh, I didn't do that
History?
research. I didn't do that history. I didn't go for it. And why does the Headless Horseman have a jack-o'-lantern for a head?
Good question. So apparently the Liberty Bell cracked
1812.
Well, according to many,
18...
there seems like there's a bunch of different versions of it. 1824. I guess they were testing it and it cracked. I don't know. There's the article that I read said or it could be in 1835, or it could be in 1846 on George Washington's birthday. It was likely in the 19th century when it cracked, not the 18th.
Right.
But yeah, if a bell cracks, it doesn't work anymore, right? Yeah.
I would say no. It doesn't not work like a cymbal.
It doesn't sound very good. You lived in Philadelphia.
This is true.
I've seen that bell before.
Oh, I've seen that bell.
I believe in Flowers for Charlie. The waitress and Charlie
they have lunch.
Lunch right there.
Like in a cafe or something. Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got a coffee from there last time. Only time I've been there. Just real quick, I just love the Charlie, after Cricket gets his head blown off, Charlie asks to check his pulse.
Check his pulse! He doesn't have a head!
Right. Which, can you see the blood spurting out of his neck? Is it
you can. Yeah.
You could just count. You don't have to actually feel it.
Yeah, and then the snap back to reality where they're back in the office and Charlie's got the globe and Dennis has the broom and Mac is holding the replica of the bell.
It's totally broken.
This story.
That snapback is pretty good because it's a very chaotic scene and it is perfect.
Yeah, it's a very that's how you would expect the vibe in the room to be with those 3 guys telling you a totally made up story. Well, What did you think of this episode?
Well, here's the thing. I thought it was good, but not my fave. There weren't a ton of moments, and overall, I don't love the flashbackiness, and Dennis was flexing his chops as the Juilliard trained theater actor that he is.
Right.
And we all know that Dennis is my least fave.
You have a letter grade for that?
Oh, A+.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's like there's so many things that I loved about this episode. I loved the set design. Charlie as a whole in this episode was great. The Mac versus Dennis never-ending struggle that we see is great. I can tell a lot of work went into this episode. It's very unique. It stands out in the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't love it.
Yeah.
Just this is the episode that is responsible for me getting into Always Sunny, so I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also grateful that this is a one shot.
Right. And that same moment, yes, I feel like I say that, like I reference that. Right. I reference this episode, quite a bit.
Sure.
But it was just
It's in like the golden era of Always Sunny. So like it's good by default. Like all of the episodes around season 4 to like say season 7 or 8, like it's all golden. There's nothing bad about it.
Right.
But I just didn't like it as much as I like a standard episode. So I'm going to say B+.
Yeah, it's kind of like a person who's just like so good at doing their thing, and then they're like, "Well, I'm going to try and do this new thing," and you're like, "Cool, you're so good in general that." It's like, but you don't need to do the thing. You can just be yourself.
It's like a mature. Okay, to tie this back to music, this is like a mature music fan would their favorite band maybe does like a stylistic shift for an album. Mm-hmm. You love the band, you like it. It's not like it's bad, but it's not your favorite.
Right.
And you can respect it and you can love it for what it is. That's how I feel about this episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, like it seems like when they're not trying, they're doing a better job.
Right. But having said that, I from a creative standpoint, I could see how they wanted to do something different and they had fun doing this, or it was like fulfilling in some way. And
yeah.
I'm totally fine with them doing that. Like they do a couple. There's 2 musical episodes. Like they
get a break. They get to do something new, flex some other muscle.
But yeah, it's just not my fave.
Cool. Sounds good.
And with that, if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, where sometimes I post original hot memes,
original pirate material,
at always_Stockholm. And that's all I got for this week. Will, I'll see you next time.
All right. See you later, dog and human.